Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, in the Orihuela Costa in Spain, where John George, you remember that case? This is a case that's ongoing, of course. The supposed perpetrators are known, and anyway, that's a case that's coming up. But I want to give you some news that is connected to the John George case. There's one of the people that was involved in some way that, again, we don't really know yet. Do you remember Dan McMeekin, who apparently went to the courtroom but was so drunk or high or whatever? Because Dan, very sadly, is only a young man. He is a drug addict, and he was at the courthouse in Torrevieja, trying to give his account because he was, ordered to go give his account. Apparently, he didn't have a solicitor there with him. He should have asked for a solicitor. He would have got a solicitor, but anyway, that's a whole nother. Can't go over all that again. There will have been an interpreter there, but of course, the interpreter's English wouldn't have been brilliant. And I've had experience with these court interpreters. They would have had problems understanding Dan McMeekin, especially if he was drunk. I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what happened. But what I do know is the police, in the end, threw him out, refused to take his testimony. Now, whether he's gone back since then and given his testimony again, I just don't know. It's very difficult to understand how the Guardia work. But anyway, so in the meantime, Dan McMeekin, I've been saying for quite a long time, it's a shame what's happening to that. Whatever Dan has done or hasn't done, he is a young man. He's obviously on the wrong end of drug addiction. And it just feels like he's spiraling and it's all going downwards. Anyway, the last thing that happened to Dan is he has been viciously attacked in the Orihuela Costa, stabbed, in fact, had to go to hospital. And apparently, according to the Irish press and the local newspapers in Spain as well, though they may be getting their information from the Irish press, he knows who did it, but he will not tell the police who it was. So we're going to have a look at, this is the local paper to that area. There's Dan now. Dan, I think that was Dan in better days, to be honest, because the last times I've seen Dan on TikTok, because of course he did that very harrowing TikTok. I found it harrowing anyway, where he's actually taking drugs on a live stream, talking about deleting himself. He had all those tablets, etc. I just think it's very distressing. I know Dan Meekin perhaps is not a nice person, but he's still a person at the end of the day, and it's not nice to see a young person like that just already in so much trouble, in his life due to drugs, of course. So, Irish expat knifed in Zenia. So this is Zenia again, the Orihuela Costa. I know the area very, very, very well. And, in the meantime, where all these people are retiring to these lovely houses near the beach and apartments, etc., all this is going on. There's a lot of robberies, murders, attacks, muggings. It's terrifying, actually, because this is what's going on in the background. People are living their normal lives in the day, going to the beach, going to the shopping centre, doing whatever they do, enjoying their life in Spain, and in the sort of seedy underworld of everything. There's horrible things going on, which is probably true of most places, but I think there's a lot of people who live in Zenia or visit Zenia on holiday would be surprised to hear about all this going on. So there was Dan. I don't know when that picture was taken. As I say, looks quite healthy there, doesn't he? I don't think he really looks like that now, but that's the toll that drugs will take on you. So the Belfast man who was viciously stabbed in Zenia 2 weeks ago and who refused to name his attacker claimed to know details about the brutal murder of John George in December last year. So the name is only just coming out. I knew about this stabbing for quite a while. Every time anything's happened in Zenia since all this, or in the Orihuela Costa, I've always thought, I've always been expecting something to happen to Dan. I saw him once walking along the main road over there. He was all over the road. He was, he's not in a good place, is he? Don't know what the answer is. It's nothing to do with me. I just hope one way or another something. I mean, there are programs here in Spain. There's drug rehabilitation. There's everything. But for Dan, the language barrier will probably be too much. You won't be able to undertake those drug programs because they'll all be in Spanish. But there is help. But I don't see how Dan can use it. That's the only problem with the language problem. So Dan McMeekin, 29, a convicted domestic abuser and self-confessed drug addict, was found bleeding heavily in the street. So I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Well, obviously I have a son a similar age. So, whatever. Same with John George or anybody. It's somebody's son. There's a family out there. And drugs take people to a different, a world where you can't reach them. Sorry. It's very difficult. Even if it's your loved one, if anyone who judges, it's wrong to judge because a drug addiction can take hold of anyone, just as alcohol addiction can. And you lose that person, don't you? They become a person that you don't recognise. And it's very difficult to try and cope with that and try and help them because until they're ready to be helped themselves, there really is not much you can do. But it's just so sad to think, of him. I don't know what he did. Now, we don't actually know that this attack was anything to do with the John George scenario, for example. I mean, because it seems like Dan has been, he's been caught on the CCTV actually robbing bars, etc. Was he trying to rob someone? We don't know what the circumstances were of the actual event. So it may be nothing to do with John George whatsoever. Apparently he knows who did it. He knows the person who did it. So it's someone who's known to him. But it could be a totally separate argument. Could be anything. Could be no reason. It could be that the other person, just decided to attack him because they need some help as well. We don't know what the reason for the attack was. He's not talking about it. I know exactly where it happened, and he was found bleeding heavily in the street after being knifed in the early hours of Sunday morning, the 15th of June, in Playa Flamenca, just minutes from the busy Zenia Boulevard shopping centre. And it is, this was the early hours of the morning, so there probably weren't many people around. Good job someone's found him. It's just horrible to think of anyone, just... That's that could have been the end for him, couldn't it? Just lying on the streets there. And his life has not been, he hasn't achieved his potential, has he? That all young people have a potential. Is there any hope for Dan? Honestly, it's not that I make excuses for anything that he's done or hasn't done or whatever, but my heart still breaks for him because at the end of the day, he's a human being. And somewhere along the line, he's gone wrong. And is it too late for him now? I don't know. What's his ending going to be? Anyway, Spanish police discovered him lying in a pool of blood around 1:30 a.m. on Calle Jalón, near the intersection with Salvador Dali, Dali, a dimly lit side street near where another Irishman was shot in the head just weeks earlier. So yeah, there was this other incident of because when I heard about the other incident, I thought at that time, I wonder if that's Dan, because I've just been waiting for something to happen to Dan. Anyway, he survived the attack and he remains in hospital under police watch. Now, I don't know if he's still there today or not. But in a shocking twist, he's told investigators he knows who stabbed him and he's flatly refusing to say who it was. So just think, what can the police do about that? He's obviously terrified of saying who it is, because then next time they're probably not going to, they're not going to make a mistake and he's not going to survive. I mean, what a way to live. What a way to live, being terrified like that of identifying someone who's nearly murdered you. So I don't know, what are the options for Dan? Where will he go? He can't show. I mean, where is he even living? I don't know if he, I just don't know all the ins and outs. But where's he going to go after he's discharged from hospital? So the stabbing comes as tensions run high on the Spanish coast, with a series of violent incidents involving Irish and British nationals. This is how it is in Spain. People in Britain and Ireland, complain about immigrants. How do you think Spanish people feel with all these things going on? Honestly, in that area at the moment, it is one thing after another. It's really scary. Local authorities have launched a full-scale investigation. But this isn't the first time McMeekin's name has been in the headlines. He was publicly named earlier this year by Belfast law firm KRW Law as one of two men due to give evidence in the ongoing probe into the murder of John George, a father of two, gunned down in a suspected gangland-style hit in December 2024. He had previously admitted online that he should have spoken to the family before George was killed. His failure to do so made him a target of armchair detectives and online trolls who accused him of hiding the truth. And then they talk about that slurred and emotional Facebook video posted in January. He, visibly under the influence, said, "I am guilty of not..." I mean, that we watched that video together. It is on my channel somewhere. "I am vulnerable. This is breaking me. The truth will be told." Now, if John George's murder is a gangland murder, the sentencing for whoever is eventually found responsible for it, guilty for it, will be a lot higher than if it was a normal murder. So a normal murder, whatever that is. But yeah, the sentences are heavier for gangland murders than they are for, sentimental murders, if you like, or crimes of passion, etc. Then also the Spanish press claim that McMeekin has been linked to a string of burglaries in the area, with CCTV images circulating online showing a man with a distinctive tattoo that matches his. And the other thing that happened to Dan McMeekin, so he was in touch with a TikToker who I'm not going to mention, but and that person just threw him under the bus as well. It's just like there's some very unscrupulous social media people out there that, say you can talk to me in private, I won't divulge any, and then just divulge everything they've said, their messages and everything. What a thing to do. If you are in a position where somebody takes you into their confidence, you should never give that away. Not online anyway, I mean, if it's something that you feel that you have to go to the police about, I mean, if somebody contacts you and say, "Oh yeah, I murdered someone," I think you have to give that information to the police. But I think if it was Mad saying to him, you do know that I've got to give this information to the police, but not use it as a video, like to get your clicks and everything. there's some very unscrupulous people out there on TikTok, I'm afraid. It's very depressing. Anyway, it's understood that Johnny Smith, a 27-year-old from Newton Abbey, currently behind bars in connection with the George case, had once taken McMeekin in while he was struggling with addiction, only apparently, again this is allegedly, to turn on him after finding him snorting coke in the apartment he shared with his now wife Madison. So of course this is Johnny Smith, who's in custody. He probably would have got bailed just like Michael Malley, but of course he went on the run, didn't he? But when he went on the run, he married young Madison, who's only 19 years old, and she is now his wife. Which, that's Madison's choice, but, it's possible that Johnny may, if he's found guilty, I mean, he's not guilty yet, so we have to remember that, innocent till proven guilty. But unfortunately for him, he won't get bail because he's considered that he may, do a runner again. So McMeekin has multiple convictions for vicious domestic assaults back in Northern Ireland and has served time behind bars. He and his ex-partner were both described in court as suffering from serious substance and alcohol issues. So very sad this, isn't it? What the hell is going on? Drugs are the scourge of modern society, and alcohol, I suppose, but the combination of the two. The stabbing came as police tried to unravel an increasingly murky web of violence and secrets linked to expat circles along Spain's coastal areas. Just last month, a 21-year-old Irishman was shot in the head nearby in what's believed to be a gangland score settling, and 2 Irishmen were later arrested. Police are not yet linking the 2 attacks, but locals fear the violence is spiraling out of control. And as for McMeekin, the man who said he knows more than he's telling, he's alive for now. But with his refusal to name his attacker, the question remains, how much does he really know? So this is the local Spanish newspaper saying all this. I don't know what the answer is for Dan, I really don't, but I wish there was an answer for him. I do, really, Now, these are the things, I think I've showed these before. These are the CCTV images, because it seems like Dan has, actually been, he's certainly been filmed on CCTV. It's the tattoo, you see. That's what's identified him. It looks sort of okay there, doesn't he? The difference in seeing him on that Facebook video, they're just the difference in him, drugs. He's on a downward spiral. Now, if he's in the hospital, they may be able to offer him some help. But as I say, it's just the, see, they're pointing out his tattoo, which is the tattoo on this person here that was filmed on CCTV. And he was actually identified, or if you're on Facebook, on the crime, on a Facebook crime, whatever, Costa crime or something like that. Crime Watch Orihuela Costa. They actually, publicly came out with his name, which is probably not what they should do. But anyway, I just think, I don't know what will happen while he's in hospital. I don't know how seriously ill he is. Will him being in hospital mean that he will get offered help? Maybe they have some help in English that they can offer him. I don't know. These people, if your son or daughter gets sucked into this drug thing, that could be anybody's child. If you think that couldn't be your child, or couldn't be you, people judge, and at the end of the day, at the moment, Dan is not a nice person, is he? He's done things that are not good. What's the answer? Do we just leave these people? What's the answer as far as drugs are concerned? It's so rife, isn't it? You know, and lots of people can take drugs in a recreational way and they don't go out and murder people or do things, but a lot of people just can't. You know, and then the drugs take over and they're all that matters, aren't they? And your family doesn't matter, your loved ones don't matter. You know, look at Whitney Houston. You know, you've only got to look at other people like that. I remember watching an interview with Whitney. That's exactly what should. It gets to a point where nothing matters except your next hit. And I don't mean song wise. You know, it's just takes over your whole life. So yeah. Anyway, I hope Dan is okay. I really do. I hope he can find a way out of this. You know, people do come out of it. There are people that fight these addictions and come out of it and build a life. You know, I know he's been to prison and he's done bad things, but so far, at least, he hasn't murdered anybody. As far as we know, anyway. So, you know, is there a chance for him to recover his life? I don't know. I say in Spain, there is help available, but there's a lot of help available. But the problem is the language barrier. So what would happen if he went back to Ireland? Surely there are, you know, programs. I've seen YouTube channels of people who've recovered from addiction, etc., and made a life for themselves. There is a way back for people, but how you find that way back, I would imagine, has to come, you know, it has to come from you, that you have to want to, no matter how much your family might be trying to help you or to do what they can. In the end, I suppose it's only you can do it. I hope Dan manages to do it. I really do. And, you know, I just can't help feeling for him, even though I know, you know, there'll be a lot of you out there saying, oh, well, he's a bad person, or is this, or is that. But, you know, drugs make people a bad person, don't they? That's what they did with John George. I mean, not a bad person in the sense of, I mean, we don't know what John George did or didn't do. You know, I think he was basically a good person. You can see that by how loved he was by his family, etc. But, you know, he did things that weren't good or right. You know, that's what drugs does to you. It turns you into another person. So anyway, just wanted to let you know what's happened. I hope Dan's okay. I don't know if he's still in hospital or if he's been discharged, and then if he was discharged, where's he going to go? And is he still in danger? You know, very sad. Okay, thank you for watching. Let's hope one way or another all this situation gets resolved. We want justice for John George, whoever did do what they did to John. And I mean, I don't think there's any suggestion that Dan was actually the killer. But he obviously knows more, maybe, than most people. But who knows where the truth lies. Okay, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want updates on this case or any other. I'll see you later for the mushroom murder latest. Thank you. Bye. Oh, and may your God go with you. Bye.